Fierce fighting continues in northern Ethiopia, with the government saying it will soon capture the capital of the Tigray region. Separatist forces there, meanwhile, claiming military victories of their own and pledging to stand firm. The results are in the US state of Georgia. A top election official says the hand recount of some 5 million ballots does not alter Joe Biden's victory over Donald Trump. Meanwhile, as coronavirus cases spiral out of control in the United States, residents in the most populous state, California, will be facing a new overnight curfew from Saturday. It'll remain in place until a few days before Christmas Day. Welcome to the France 24 newsroom in Paris. I'm Alexander Orcott. 3 weeks into Ethiopia's internal conflict, the situation remains muddy as both sides continue to claim major victories on the ground. The Prime Minister, Abiy Ahmed, a Nobel Peace Prize winner, launched the military campaign in response to what he called an attack on Ethiopian forces by the Tigray People's Liberation Front. Government forces claim to be making their final push now to capture the regional capital, and they say they're ready to put in place an interim government locally when fighting ends. With more details, here's Lauren Berstecker.
Already making plans for a transition of power, Ethiopia's central government set up an interim administration meant to take charge of the Tigray region after it defeats the TPLF.
The task of this interim administration will be to create a conducive environment so as to make sure the 6th national election is conducted as per the National Electoral Board.
Earlier in the day, the Ethiopian military said it was closing in on Mekele, Tigray's regional capital. But in a region where communications and transportation have been cut off, such claims remain difficult to verify. Tigrayan authorities acknowledged losing the town of Shire in the west, but said their forces were holding elsewhere. They also accused the central government of enlisting the help of foreign fighters and technology. Since the conflict began in early November, both sides have made contradicting claims about the state of the fighting and have accused each other of multiple human rights violations. The United Nations recently warned a full-scale humanitarian crisis was unfolding in Ethiopia, where the conflict has already led some 36,000 people to flee to neighboring Sudan.
After a long, drawn-out process, a top election official in the US state of Georgia says a hand tally of almost 5 million votes confirms Joe Biden's lead over Donald Trump in the state. The recount stemmed from an audit required by the new state law and wasn't in response to any suspected problems with the result or any official request for a recount. Even though the overall result has not changed, I earlier spoke with France 24's correspondent Ketavan Gorgestani, who told me what did come out of the recount.
Well, what has come out is that Joe Biden's lead has narrowed just a little bit from what it was heading into the recount. Heading into the recount, Joe Biden had about a 14,000 vote lead over Donald Trump. After the recount, according to the press release from the Secretary of State's office, Biden now beats Trump by 12,284 votes. Now, the election officials of the state of Georgia repeated over and over again during this whole recount process that there was absolutely no evidence of widespread fraud or widespread irregularities. The only thing that this recount found was about nearly 6,000 votes that had not been counted in the initial count after the election. Once those votes, those 6,000 votes were counted, they realized that it had netted Donald Trump a few votes, and that's why that margin has shrunk for Joe Biden. But as you said, it has not changed the fact that Joe Biden has won the state of Georgia according to that official recount. This recount that has confirmed the result now has to be certified. The certification is supposed to happen by law this Friday from the Secretary of State of the state of Georgia. And only after the certification, if that margin is under 0.5%, which it is with just about 12,000 votes between the two candidates, the Trump campaign now can ask for a new recount. This time the recount will not be by hand, it will be a recount by scans, but that will be a request from the campaign if they so choose to, and given the reaction here, it is likely that the Trump campaign will ask for that recount.
Meanwhile, coronavirus infections continue to spiral out of control in the US. 2,200 deaths reported in the latest 24-hour figure and 200,000 new cases. With this in mind, the Centers for Disease Control has issued a nationwide warning telling people not to travel during Thanksgiving. Meanwhile, a nighttime curfew imposed from Saturday in California is due to last until December the 21st, setting the stage for a miserable holiday season. These announcements come as parents in New York are protesting the closure of public schools in the state. Catherine Viet has more.
Angry parents gathered to protest the mayor's decision to close New York City's public schools and switch to online learning.
We were promised that decisions would be made based upon data and science. Well, the data and science are in, and the risk of spread in schools is low, and the harm that we are doing to our children is high.
Mayor Bill de Blasio said the measure was necessary because the city's positive rate on coronavirus testing has hit the 3% threshold. After beating back the virus, the city has seen a late fall resurgence. But with restaurants and non-essential shops still open, parents have accused the mayor of a double standard. De Blasio says it's just a matter of time before other businesses will also be closed.
Everyone who honestly might feel somehow a little better if they knew that indoor dining was going to be closed or gyms were going to be closed, I'm sorry to tell you that for the sake of those business owners and everyone who loves those gyms and loves indoor dining, it's just a matter of time. It's very likely to be in the next week or two.
The decision comes as Americans begin making plans for Thanksgiving next Thursday. The holiday is one of the country's busiest travel periods, but some health experts are recommending 2-week quarantines for those visiting areas with high infection rates. The CDC has taken it one step further, urging people to stay home and not travel for the holiday. For those playing it safe, Zoom has announced it's lifting its 40-minute time limit, allowing people to connect online for up to 30 hours on Thanksgiving.
Looking at vaccines now, and the UK says it's in the process of setting up dozens of mass immunisation centres across the country to administer the Pfizer coronavirus vaccine from mid-December onwards. Meanwhile, airline companies are also making plans to be ready to transport millions of doses of the shots. This comes with an added challenge, however, as they must ensure that they remain at a precise temperature in cold storage throughout the entire transport chain. And it's no small feat, as France 24's team explains.
It's an immense challenge, a global vaccination campaign for nearly 8 billion people. It's also a logistical headache for which the airline industry is getting ready. At Air France, a task force has already been put in place. The major challenge, keeping the vaccine cold with the help of these special containers. Pfizer Laboratories' vaccine must be stored at temperatures of minus 80 degrees.
80 degrees is technically feasible. It's not the easiest, but it's doable. To maintain 80 degrees throughout the chain, from leaving the laboratory to arriving at the clinic, it's still quite a long time.
This 777 jetliner can carry up to 100 tons of cargo in its huge hold. Globally, around 8,000 planes like this might be needed.
It's going to be a big logistical challenge because there are going to be massive shipments. We won't know until the last moment when the vaccines will be produced, and we won't know until the last moment where they'll be sent. So that's a big challenge too.
Possibly in a few weeks, hundreds of thousands of doses of the vaccine could begin passing through Charles de Gaulle Airport. Precious cargo that'll be watched closely.
It's a product that's highly desired. And that's why we have this task force in place at the airport, in which the police are involved.
Another difficulty, delays. Custom formalities and mandatory quarantines for airline crews could slow the delivery of the vaccine to certain parts of the world.
Well, back here in France, and in what looks like an uncharacteristic act of solidarity with the high street, internet giant Amazon has said it's willing to push back the date of its Black Friday mega sale if the French government allows shops to reopen after the current lockdown. The smaller stores have been begging to reopen in time for the November the 27th shopping bonanza, as they fear all their business will be gobbled up by online retailers. Sharon Gaffney has more.
French consumers spent an estimated €6 billion during last year's Black Friday sales extravaganza. This year, with the country in lockdown and non-essential businesses closed until at least the start of December, smaller retailers are calling for shoppers to boycott the annual promotional event. The government has responded by asking for Black Friday to be postponed, with the finance minister thanking those who've already agreed to do so.
Je crois que c'est exactement cet esprit de responsabilité qui doit présider à nos décisions économiques. Nous avons bien avancé ce matin, nous poursuivons le travail, parce qu'il y a un gros travail technique, logistique, juridique à faire pour que cette décision soit définitivement prise.
French retailers Leclerc and Carrefour have agreed to delay their Black Friday sales, which would be starting on the 27th of November under normal circumstances. Amazon says it's also open to a postponement of the event if the French government allows shops to reopen before the start of December. Others in the online retail industry say they're also prepared to be flexible as long as their rivals cooperate.
La campagne de Black Friday est une opération qui est mondiale, qui souvent est orchestrée par des marques. Donc on ne peut pas non plus, dans cette décision, créer une situation d'inéquité entre des acteurs qui sont impliqués localement en France et puis des acteurs qui sont plus distants dans d'autres régions du monde.
The French finance minister says he hopes to reach a collective agreement to postpone the sales when he meets retailers for talks on Friday.
Now, restaurants all over France have had to close their doors to dining customers as a result of the coronavirus pandemic. And while many have chosen just to hang up their aprons during the lockdown, others have stayed on to see what they can do for the most needy. Yinka Oyatade has more.
This Parisian restaurant may look as lifeless as any other establishment in France, but inside its kitchen is as busy as ever. These chefs are not working to serve hungry customers, though. All hands are on deck here as part of an initiative by the Table de Chef charity. Their goal is to turn groceries that have been donated into more than 30,000 meals to feed those most in need before Christmas. Even though he's retired, Michelin star chef Gérard Cagna couldn't turn down a chance to pick up his apron once again.
Et tout de suite, en 4 secondes, l'équipe se forme. Un regard, salut, tu vas bien? Bonjour, hop, on se tutoie. Et ça part, quoi. Et tout le monde fonce dans les oignons, vous avez vu, dans les oignons, dans les poissons, dans les crumbles. Et tout le monde est fier et ravi. Et on est fiers d'être chefs.
The food industry has been one of the hardest hit by the pandemic. Some 40% of restaurants have had to close their doors permanently. Alexis Ravida used to work for one of the most famous diners in the country until it fell into bankruptcy last May.
Je suis victime du Covid et du confinement, mais en attendant, puisque j'ai du temps pour moi, j'essaie de le mettre à profit pour les gens qui en ont besoin, et puis ça donne un petit peu un sens à votre métier.
In a single day, this army of chefs prepared over 2,000 meals that were sent to food banks across the Île-de-France region. Some of those meals made it to this church on the other side of Paris.
Ils sont très haut placés, mais ils pensent quand même aux plus pauvres que nous avons, que nous accueillons. Ils disent que c'est très bon. Ils disent ça vient d'où, c'est quoi? Et alors à ce moment-là, on leur explique d'où ça vient.
Initiatives like this are essential in the midst of a pandemic that has ignited an unprecedented social crisis. 50% of France's population has signed up for food aid.
Stay tuned to France 24.